We need the government,
Yeah.
because there is a mental health epidemic going on. I saw Deepika's interview last night, and both she and Karan have spoken so openly about mental health, and they've also spoken about taking medication. Main reasons for teenagers wanting to kill themselves, either it is broken relationships or pressure of academics or problems with their own sexuality which they cannot understand. You will be surprised that housewives uh, die of suicides 25 times more than farmers. I think the first sign of anxiety is when you lose your sleep, or then there's that group of people who just don't want to get out of bed.
Dive into the depths of mental health with third Dr. Anjali Chhabria, a renowned psychiatrist and psychotherapist with over 35 years of experience. Today, we dive into all things mental health, from suicide prevention and postpartum disorder to anxiety and depression. Join us for this nuanced conversation that is a necessity in our time. Welcome to the Humans of Bombay show, Dr. Anjali. I'm really excited to be chatting with you because I think we've been planning this for a while, and I'm hoping that you have a lot of answers, not only for me, but everybody who has a lot of questions about mental health and addressing those issues that are so prevalent today. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for calling me here. You guys are doing such amazing work. Congratulations to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, and of course, for mental health, anytime.
Anytime.
Yes.
You've had a 35-year-long career, and I'm sure you've seen thousands, lakhs of cases through this time period. A question I have, to begin this conversation is there any recurring theme or recurring symptom that you've identified broadly? Of course, each case is so different from another, but
Right.
any one recurring theme that stands out?
I think lots of recurring themes. Okay, the first thing is that when somebody starts suffering from mental health issues, so one symptom is a loss of interest. People just feel that I don't feel like doing anything, and it's not that I'm not a motivated person, or I'm lazy. But what happens is, I just don't feel like doing anything. Then the other recurring theme that happens when people are suffering is a feeling of feeling lonely. I feel alone. I could be sitting with my friends, I could be sitting with my family, but I'm feeling alone,
Yeah.
So lots of things like this.
Yeah. And when such symptoms occur, right, at say a nascent stage where you get that feeling of disinterest or I'm with my friends, my family, my loved ones, but I feel alone, what are the recommended next steps for anybody who's watching at a very nascent stage?
So I think the first thing one needs to do is have a conversation with yourself, that what is happening to me, okay, and why is it happening. Now also what happens is when something is happening to me, it's like if I get a fever, what is the first thing? Oh, I ate something out, that's why I've got fever.
Yeah.
Okay, so similarly in mental health issues, if I feel sad or I want to blame it on someone else or something else, because something did not go right, I'm feeling sad, or because someone did something to me, in relationships. Typical, my mother-in-law said this, so I'm feeling bad, or my husband did not do this, so I'm feeling bad. I think we need to take ownership and say, I'm feeling bad,
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing we need to do. And the second thing is to address it with the right person, who I would like to say should be a mental health professional, because people go around doing all sorts of things. They will go to holy places, they will go to priests, they will go to,
Yeah.
and then what happens is, you'll go to a tarot card reader, you'll go to so many people, but if till you do not go to the person who can help you, you're actually just wasting time, and the problems become worse, the symptoms increase, and they cause you much more emotional distress.
Yeah.
Like I see people who say, oh, for the last 3 years I've been thinking of coming to see you, and my first thing is, do I look so scary that you've been thinking for 3 years? But they say, no, but the stigma, how can I go to a psychiatrist? You know, and that is the stigma that we all have to work very hard to reduce. I don't know when it will be eradicated.
Yeah. But over the last few years, I feel like the conversation around mental health, especially given that there are so many celebrities who have
Yes.
openly come out, influencers who come out saying, I'm in therapy. Or like,
Yes.
I think one of the biggest not brand ambassadors, I feel like one of the biggest spokespeople in media is Deepika Padukone, who talks so much about
Yes. Yes.
having dealt with these mental health issues, that the taboo is significantly releasing.
Yes.
However, I feel like, this is a tier 1 beginning, but as we go into tier 2, tier 3 cities, so many people collectively are dealing with these issues at a very deep level, but that taboo is more prevalent there.
Right.
How is it that we can take that step towards negating this taboo across different sections of society?
You know, I was really happy. I saw Deepika's interview last night, you know, and both she and Karan have spoken so openly about mental health, and they've also spoken about taking medication. You know, so what was happening is all these years people were saying, oh, talk about it, go for therapy. But what happens is if you have a medical problem, you need medication.
Correct.
You know, and they've spoken about it, and I think this is really going to help us in our battle towards reducing the stigma of taking medication. And as far as, of course, now, you know, when celebrities talk, they get a lot of views, especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Yeah.
You know, but we need to do more. You know, we also need our chemists not to make comments when somebody goes to take a medication. You know, because everybody has an opinion. Okay, right from maybe the family doctor who will say, why do you need medication? You become strong. To your aunt, to your cousin brother, to his aunt. You know, everybody has an opinion. And then you go to the chemist will look at you and say, oh, why are you taking these medicines? You're so young. You know, so I think we need to do a lot of work, and we need the schools to come forward. We need parents, we need teachers, we need media, social media. I mean, we need the government, you know, because there is a mental health epidemic going on. So, you know, why don't we have a mental health minister? When there was COVID, the government went door to door asking you, do you have fever? We want to check you. We want to help you. Do you need anything? Right now, there are so many people killing themselves, and they're not even getting help because people think they are lazy. People think they are throwing attitude. People think they are misbehaving. You know, I mean, imagine a woman who's delivered a child who knows nothing about postpartum. She could be in a village, okay, and she could be not sleeping and maybe screaming, shouting, or not wanting to touch a baby. And what happens to her? People will think she's possessed, and they will take her to some holy priest or some holy person, you know, so-called, who may physically abuse her. And she comes back more traumatized.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to have these conversations. We need, you know, even the women who are, or the nurses who are delivering these babies in the villages to know that there are postpartum disorders which can be treated with medication.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's treatable. That's the thing that
Absolutely.
needs to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you've done a lot of work and had a lot of words about this particular topic, which is suicide prevention. What is it that you've observed, right, over the past, say, decade? How have suicide rates gone up or down? And what do you think is the primary root cause that people fail to address?
So, unfortunately, the suicide rates in our country have been going up. They are still going up, you know. And what is happening is that it's a combination of factors. Okay, now, on one hand, if we look at how society is changing, what happened with COVID, how teenagers got affected. Because, if you're going to kind of divide the society, I would say teenagers, when we say teenagers, we are including people right from the age from 13 to 30.
Right.
Okay. And these are the people who had to bear the brunt of COVID, because they were in the houses. A lot of them did not attend schools.
Yeah.
You know,
Physical schools. Yeah.
Physical schools. A lot of them, somewhere they were in the 9th standard and now suddenly they're in 12th grade.
Yeah.
And their formative years, their important years, they were at home. And India is a huge country. Okay, we are talking about different groups over there. Okay. So one good thing is that, okay, people start talking about mental health. But where suicide prevention is concerned, nothing much has been done about it. There are groups, there are NGOs who are doing fantastic work, but at the same time, we need much more, because when a teenager feels lonely, feels alone, feels sad, and feels suicidal, okay, many a times people feel that, oh, what can we do to prevent it? But if we can use those same means and encourage them and give them the help.
Yeah.
Main reasons for teenagers wanting to kill themselves, either it is broken relationships or pressure of academics, or problems with their own sexuality which they cannot understand.
Yeah.
And we do not even have sex education in schools. Nobody talks about how to deal with breakups. In spite of screaming from the top of the roof, maybe for the last 25 years we've been doing it, that there should be counselors in school who are there to handle kids when they do not do well academically.
Yeah.
Parents need to be taught how to deal with this.
Yeah.
So this is only one section of society. If you look at the housewives, you will be surprised that housewives die of suicides 25 times more than farmers. We all know about farmer suicides.
Yeah.
But what happens to that poor lady when she is pressurized? Who does she talk to? And of course, we have geriatric suicides.
Yeah.
So we need education, awareness at all levels, and we need to have conversations to help the general public to take these things seriously.
Yeah.
So we are talking about a mental health revolution in our country which needs to be done.
Absolutely. It's like visiting any doctor for a physical ailment.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
should be that it should be as normal, right? Like normalize the fact that you go to see a counselor, you go to see a psychiatrist. It's because there is an illness.
Absolutely.
Any such Do you have any such cases that, have had even a profound impact on you, either where you were able to prevent it, or, if somebody didn't come to you on time and an adverse situation happened?
Oh, there are lots, and I mean, it could be both, okay, because suddenly I'll have, I've gone somewhere socially and then someone will come and meet me and say, oh, you won't recognize me, but I had come to see you 20 years ago. And I'm so glad I did, because that meeting changed my life.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you're talking, like I remember this very, very, I was telling the parents when they thought that their son was just acting. Okay. And I did tell them, I said, please take care of him. I'm really worried about him.
Yeah.
Give him the medication. Otherwise, he may harm himself. And they did not listen. Instead, he must have gone home and got a firing from his parents that ye sab kya naya shuru kiya hai tumne? What is psychiatry? What is a psychiatric disorder? What is depression? We don't understand it. And unfortunately, the boy felt alone and he succumbed to killing himself.
Yeah.
And I believe that after a year, on the same day that he died of suicide, one of his parents also did the same.
Oh, no way.
And these are preventable deaths.
Yeah.
And every time something like this happens, we all as mental health professionals also, we feel so bad. We feel so helpless, that this was a life which could have, just because of the stigma of visiting a mental health doctor, a psychiatrist, or taking medication, because people have all sorts of, thoughts in their head. And the first thing, I think I do this every day, even today, 35 years, I'm still doing this. क्या आप नींद की दवाइयाँ देंगे? ऐसे नहीं. आपकी दवाइयों से क्या हमें पूरी ज़िंदगी लेनी पड़ेगी? All our life, will we get dependent? I'll have to say, no, you won't. No, but my so-and-so told me, and my so-and-so told me that do everything but take medication.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think 3 weeks back I had a fracture of my foot, and I was wearing a cast, and I would tell them that if I did everything but wear the cast, would I improve? And they say no. So, that became an example of, I said, just because this fracture cannot be seen,
yeah, doesn't mean it's not real.
Doesn't mean it's not real.
What are some of the myths at this point that you'd like to bust, right? Whether it's about medication or about seeking help in general, because there are so many taboos, very many layers of taboos attached to this particular topic. What are some of the things that you've been asked and you'd like to clarify?
Yeah, so one was first about medication. As I said, that if once you start taking medicines, you'll always be taking medicines, or all the medicines make you sleep. Now, it's absolutely wrong, because it's not true. It's like depression is just like anything else, of course, if somebody is suffering from a thought disorder like a schizophrenia, they may need medicines for a longer time, or a mood disorder, then you may be required to take a mood stabilizer for a long time. But people feel that, the once I go, to a psychiatrist, they're going to catch me, either give me electric shocks, or, pump in medicines which I have to take all my life. Okay, so that is a huge myth. Okay. The second thing is that, if I'm strong, I won't need medication. Okay. And, I just tell people the strongest person we know got COVID, right?
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with how mentally strong you are. In fact, if you're mentally strong, there are more people coming, and there are more problems that you're handling. And the strongest person can get a fracture, the strongest person can get COVID. So the strongest person, it has nothing to do with how strong you are. So that itself is a myth. The third myth is that, if I do religious practices, if I do spiritual practices, then everything will become all right. If I do yoga, I will never have mental health issues. Now, spiritual practices or yoga, this is something that everybody should do. It's going to help us.
It's about well-being.
It's about well-being. It's not about, but when you're sick, you need a doctor. Your stars may be wrong. So people go everywhere, right? They'll go to an astrologer who'll say your stars are wrong, right? So I say, fine, let the astrologer do his job. Let whoever wants to pray for you, but at the same time, dawa or dua. Please take your medicines also.
Right.
The other myth is, I will take any medicine besides allopathic medicine.
Why?
Okay. Because allopathic medicines have side effects. Other medicines don't have side effects, and they don't have side effects because you can't Google them. But with allopathic medicines, you Google it and you'll see side effects of water also, and you'll get side effects of water.
Correct.
So I think we have a Herculean task in our country. Yes.
Yeah, ahead of us. Let's talk a little bit about mental health in the context of this generation, right? We were talking earlier about the very many different scenarios that could lead to this. One of the most debated topics is about social media.
Yes.
And technology. There is a study that showcases that there is a direct correlation between the amount of people who are depressed as the social media boom happened. The correlation is undeniable. 2 questions here. One, have you seen that yourself? And number 2 is, how can one maintain a healthy balance with technology? Because it's inevitable. It's not like anybody can't use social media.
Absolutely.
Anybody can't use technology. How is it that boundary can be maintained?
So, of course, it is reality that we are seeing a lot of correlation with mental health issues and excessive social media use. Now, what happens to the young mind is that, people put up fantastic pictures, right? If you're just looking at whichever social media sites that young kids use these days. And over there, when somebody is looking at someone's pictures, they are only they are thinking that, oh, everybody's having a great time,
Yeah.
Then body image issues, he or she is looking so good, I don't look good. Okay. And then, of course, these sites also become platforms to bully other young kids. A lot of young kids get bullied. And because of that, and sometimes they may not even be able to share with their parents what's happening to them. A lot of them may get into groups which are kind of, messing with their minds.
Correct.
Right? So either aggressive groups, or where there's too much of sexual content, or all this, and their mind does not know how to digest it. Now, because of all this, and it's also addictive, social media, it's like, even if you're just like, if I'm waiting for you and I pick up the phone, and I can go on from one to the other
Without even realizing.
without even realizing
Yeah.
it. So of course, I think coming back to how can we control it, what do parents do? I think first of all, parents have to restrict the use of, their own use of social media. I think there need to be real conversations. We are actually telling families to look into each other's eyes while they're having a meal together, to spend that time, and to start playing games with each other which are not on the phone or not related to a gadget.
Correct.
Physical games. And many a times, parents will come and tell me that, but even if I do that, my child is inside, he or she doesn't want to participate. I say, just try it out. Within a week, they come back and the child says, yeah, I heard laughing sounds outside, so I wanted to know what was happening. So that is one way of doing it. The
Yeah.
other thing is, from a very young age, if children are taught to, go beyond themselves, I think somewhere the entire, parents are taking their role too seriously, and they want their kids to get into this whole competition game, and because of that, because of the competition, I think people are not paying attention to what is happening outside. Why can't a child be encouraged to take care of a plant or an animal? Just be a little more involved in nature, to have relationships with others, get cousins over, get grandparents over. Why are we becoming so self-absorbed?
Correct.
you know
So this particular segment, we've discussed fairly younger kids, right?
Yes.
What about adults who are,
Right.
say, working or late teens, in their 30s? Everybody has a gadget, and everybody is hooked on to, whether it's reels or whether it's just checking updates, right? It's almost like a dopamine hit that you get
Right.
every time you open
Right.
that phone and you post a photo and you get the like hit that happens in terms of validation. What can we do in that context to set a boundary?
So I think taking holidays from your gadgets is extremely important. Okay, being aware of how long you're spending on your gadget. The gadget will tell you whether you spend 6 hours, 7
Yeah.
hours.
What's an
Or
optimum
more.
number?
I think it all depends, because if you're doing your work on your gadget, you can't,
Yeah, work aside.
right?
Right,
So
like-
I would say not more than maybe 30 to 40 minutes a day is also a lot.
Wow.
Okay, but what has happened is, people, whenever they get time, as soon as you wake up, even if you are in bed with your most loved one, you won't say good morning to that person. You'll first look at your phone,
Yeah.
as if to say, I think the only people who need to have their phone around is us poor doctors. But I don't think anybody else needs to have their phone around,
Yeah.
because when we are not contactable, it's a problem. So I think being very conscious and cognizant of that. 2 is actually taking holidays where there is no network. 3 is making a conscious effort, and 4 is even, like, why can't young adults play physical games?
Yeah, absolutely.
Start running, cycling, playing football, whatever you like to do.
Yeah.
But it's very important to do that.
I mean, we've all been through it. Like my generation, we didn't have cell phones and iPad for a very long time.
Yes.
And we survived. We made it through.
Absolutely. And you'll be surprised. I have seen youngsters actually feeling happier when they have not been on the gadget,
Yeah.
Taking a holiday from that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But it has to become a habit. Because it's already become a habit and now you have to break the habit.
I'm going to come into the habit part a little bit later. I want to go deeper into that. But I'll ask you the next context. Let's talk a little bit about mental health in the workspace. There's a constant battle between hustle harder or kind of like have that work-life balance. What is the optimum, right? Like where do you draw the line? Because, for example, with somebody like me, I love what I do. I don't see the hours. I've said this. Like I sometimes edit at 6 a.m. because I don't look at it as work. But I have no idea whether slowly and steadily, it may not show now, but it does affect me in the long term. I have no idea.
Right.
So
Right.
what is your understanding?
So, see, at Mind Temple, we've been doing a lot of workshops with the corporates, because at the workplace, I think definitely there's a balance. Okay. And what do we mean by the balance? It actually means you work more when you're relaxed.
Right.
Okay. Yes, you love what you do, and given a chance, you'll probably work 24 hours, right? And I understand that completely because I'm like that.
Yeah.
But yes, we have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to exercise. And when we come home, we also need to leave some part of our work
At the office.
at the office, So I think that is important. Of course, there would be emergencies. You have to prioritize. Sometimes you have to work on a holiday too. But generally, if you can, when you leave workplace, if you can stop thinking about it and maybe, just indulge in a hobby, just on your way from work to home also,
Yeah.
sing a song, go dancing, go walking, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whatever you like to do, or maybe even gossip with a few friends. That also helps us to, keep the
Disconnect.
smile on our face while we are still working.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all of us will land up, having long faces and just walking around like zombies.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to some of the most rampant mental health issues that come up or crop up, whether at work or whether at home, anxiety and depression obviously are common in that sense, right? How is it that one can identify early signs of first anxiety and then depression?
I think the first sign of anxiety is when you lose your sleep, insomnia, where people cannot go to sleep, or even if they go to sleep, they wake up pretty early in the mornings. Or then there's that group of people who just don't want to get out of bed.
Right.
Okay, that could be the first symptom. Of course, overthinking, overanalysis, procrastination, these are other symptoms. So, people manifest anxiety in different ways. Okay, some people may just have excessive palpitation, some people get breathless, some people, their gut becomes overactive, so they need to go to the washroom. You may get chest pain, you may just start feeling excessive dryness of mouth, and then there are people who freeze because they just don't know what to do. So everybody's body is different and each one responds to, what we call as the weak organ theory.
Correct.
Okay, so whichever your organ is the most susceptible to emotion, that may kind of take over, And then, of course, when somebody is in the throes of depression, there are negative thoughts, you feel nothing is going to go right, and you may have thoughts of worthlessness, helplessness, hopelessness, and even want to kill yourself, So these are some of the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And of course, trust becomes a major issue.
Yeah.
You may not want to trust even the people who you love or love you.
Correct. So, assume that someone who's watching this identifies with these symptoms and their first course of action is not to go to a therapist or a counselor because maybe that takes time to build. What are some actionable steps that they can do in the interim? Of
So-
course, the biggest recommendation is that you go and seek help. But what are the immediate steps that they can take?
So I think the first thing is to recognize that this is happening to me. Okay. And two is see what is it? Is it work that is stressing you out? Is it a relationship that is stressing you out? Okay. And I tell everyone that talk to 2 or 3 people about this. Okay, who are your friends first?
Correct.
Okay. And if this is a symptom which is going on for some time, as I said, if you have a fracture of your foot, you need to go and see somebody, see the right person, because otherwise you'll end up wasting a lot of time. So I think even if you feel that your friend is suffering, for the last few years we've been talking to a lot of students and telling them that you have to help your friends to take help. Even if your friends do not want to, and I have a lot of youngsters who do that. They just gather, they go and talk to this friend who's left a WhatsApp group, or who's getting upset, or who's abusing substances or alcohol. They pick him up from the house and they will take him to the mental health professional.
Yeah.
So I think that there is no excuse to doing that, and I think that is what we must tell people to do.
Yeah.
you
So it's important to debunk this myth over here, right?
Yes,
That,
yes.
okay, we are taken to a mental health expert. However, there is a little bit of a perception that it's very expensive. How true?
Which is not
or
true.
Exactly.
Which is not true, because all municipal hospitals have a department of psychiatry, they have counselors, they have psychologists, so that is absolutely free.
Okay.
Okay. And a lot of help is also available online.
Right.
So that's a huge myth.
Yeah.
you know
We'll add and link some of these resources as
Yes,
you've just spoken,
yes,
and
yes.
so that people can actually
yeah, there are
utilize it.
free helplines for people. If they're feeling low, if they're feeling suicidal, they can just call up these helplines and they will get the help.
Correct.
Both local and national helplines.
Okay. Moving on, we spoke a little bit about relationships, where you said you talk to your 2 or 3 friends or your family, whoever you feel close to. However, it is relationships that cause this distress in a lot of people, whether it is at home, whether it's with a friend, whether it's a colleague. How do you think our relationships affect our mental health in general? It takes a very strong and it takes a very evolved human being to not be impacted by others. But most people actually are impacted by the words or actions of others.
Absolutely. You see that, when you're living with people, when there is a give and take, where you're giving yourself, obviously there are going to be expectations.
Yeah.
And when their expectations are not met, or, if you're extremely hurt, so what happens is it's going to upset you. But what happens is it's like the impact, after the initial impact goes away, people will get upset with each other and then they move on. Either they get closer or they go away from the relationship. Now,
Yeah.
of course, it's an important relationship. You can't just go away, right? So people try and talk about it, analyze the factors in yourself, in the other person. Okay, and try and work at it. Now, when you cannot do that, or when you feel that, you feel you're moving around in circles, that's the time to take advice from a relationship counselor, a psychologist. Again, any mental health professional can help you. And we also have certain psychometric assessments,
Yeah.
which I can just send to you, and you will know what are the factors in you. So that's what we advise, anyone. I mean, it could be a couple who's coming in for therapy, or a parent and a child,
Yeah.
or at times I've also seen mother-in-law, daughter-in-laws coming in and saying, we want to have a better relationship. So we help them identify factors in themselves, and tell them that you have to work on yourself. Don't keep coming here and complaining to me about him or her.
The other person.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And once you do that, I have seen a lot of relationships, work for the better. And of course, but if you're in a toxic relationship, then that's a time where you may feel however good you are, whatever you're doing. Okay, and we see it all the time that there is, maybe a couple in a relationship, when it's like one is the narcissist and the other is the empath,
Yeah. It was my next question. How does one recognize and disengage from toxic relationships, right? Because the mental health of the person who's at the receiving end, or vice versa, takes a serious hit. So how is that recognition possible, and how is it possible to disengage? You may love that person a lot, but how do you identify that this is toxic?
So I think when you feel that the relationship is, like even though this is the only area of your life that you're having problems. Okay, that's the first symptom. And when I said talk to 3 people, I meant 3 friends. Don't talk to, okay, you talk to your family if you're not feeling well. That's a different thing. But otherwise, if you're having a problem, say for example, if you're having a problem with another friend, then you talk to 2-3 people who will say, no, this is not about you, this is about the other person. So similarly, when you're in a relationship where you feel you've only been giving, and the person's demands only keep increasing, okay, that is the time to think that, hey, where am I going? Am I holding on to this relationship only because I want to be in a relationship, or I have the fear that what will happen to me if I get out of this relationship?
The fear of being alone, effectively.
You're already alone.
Right.
When you're in a toxic relationship or you're in a one-way relationship, it's all about the other person. So whatever you do or whatever you say, it becomes about him or her. Then that's the time that you're actually alone. But you think that if you get out of the relationship, you'll be alone, or what are other people going to talk about, or what are other people going to say? How is it going to impact my family? And actually when you start sharing it with your loved ones, they may just turn around and say, we were wondering how you were taking all this for so long and you should get out.
Yeah.
And some of the symptoms are if the person is excessively controlling, suspicious, wants to know all your whereabouts, or at the same time gets into a fury of anger, may throw things and throw tantrums, and it all becomes about how you are the bad one and he or she is a good one.
Yeah.
So these are serious sides of a toxic relationship.
Right. What about narcissism? How do you identify a narcissist?
So see, a lot has been going on in the if you Google narcissism, a lot of stuff comes up, but actually people who are narcissistic, they're in love with themselves and they think that whatever they say is always right. So, some of the signs which we already spoke about emotional abuse, which comes up. Because whatever you do, their bars just keep growing higher and higher. And, you're like, what's happening here?
It's never enough.
It's never enough. And it's always your fault.
Right.
And whatever you do is not going to, you're never going to make it.
Yeah.
So you have to keep doing more and more and more, till you realize that what more can I do? And they're always right. They always know best.
Yeah.
Okay. And the thing is, you will also see that this happens in their other relationships. So these are people who may not even have real friends. They may have a lot of people around them, but there's no one that they can actually go and talk to, because they're always trying to show everybody, only what they want to show, not their real colors.
Yeah. If we go one step further when it comes to drawing boundaries or having toxic relationship, is abuse, right? There's domestic violence, there's abuse of a very physical nature that happens in relationships and happens behind closed doors. Now, for these individuals, both men and women, it becomes extremely difficult if it's been, say, a long marriage to come out and talk about it, because there's a family. There are so many different levels and layers of complicated textures that one may not understand how to navigate. in this situation, what kind of resources are available for anybody who's going through violence and who does not have the means or the courage to step out and talk about it, but is maybe watching this episode?
No, I think it's very, very important to realize that, when there is violence happening, whether it's emotional, verbal, or physical, okay, there's always something that you can do. Okay, so if you're looking at, say, maybe an emotional, verbal violence, you can always talk to somebody and realize what you need to do. Like, for example, how are you supporting this kind of a thing and how can you break the pattern? Because if you see in people like this, there are patterns. Okay, so once you start realizing that there is a pattern, then how do you get out of that pattern? Can you walk away before it happens? What do you do when it happens? Who are the people you can take into confidence? Of course, and what are the resources, whether it is legal, whether it is, psychological, what is it that you want for yourself? And of course, people, when they recognize this, there are people who walk away from these relationships. I've had workshops with, wives of alcoholics, and I'm talking about, these were like workers living in the slums. Okay, and I remember the lady saying, "Well, what can I do alone?" I said, "But you're not alone. All you need to do is shout and let all the other women come together." And that's what they started doing. Okay, these women started coming together to stop the wife being beaten up
By the husband.
By the husband. And then they would get the husband for alcohol rehabilitation. So that was it was a small beginning, and they didn't have to do anything else. They didn't have to call the cops because, the cops will come and say, "Oh, it's your family matter," and they'll go away. What do you do the next day? But these are women who are there around. So one needs to look for local support. Like even if there's physical violence, if there is physical violence or even the beginning of it, I tell, whether it's men or women who are being abused, I tell them that you need to talk to someone about it. Maybe take a friend into confidence, and you need to get your partner for help in whatever way, if you can't leave the partner. But sometimes, people who abuse who bully are actually cowards. And the minute you call their bluff, or the minute you tell them that, okay, I'm not going to tolerate this abuse any longer, okay, the abuse goes down. So I think, of course, a lot needs to be done. But they can reach out. There's enough of help available, whether it's legal or emotional.
Right. How does self-esteem and self-worth impact the quality of relationships? And at an individual level, what can we do to maintain that healthy sense of self?
So I think self-worth, self-esteem are all concepts which, very early in life, I talk to a lot of parents as to how do we work on your child's self-worth and self-esteem. Because what happens is the child may do everything right. But if you have a parent who's a perfectionist, who'll only look at what you haven't done right, then what happens is the self-doubt starts. And then you start, okay, one is that yes, you're trying to work on yourself and make yourself better. But the other is if your self-esteem gets impacted, by anything and everything that's going wrong around you, it's definitely going to create a problem. So I think we need to not be very harsh on ourselves. At the same time, you don't need to think that you're God's gift to mankind. So the balance between the two
is necessary.
Yes, is necessary, and grounding is also very important. So doing normal things. Which should be a part of everybody's daily life.
Okay, that brings me to the next segment. It's called Ask a Shrink. What effective stress management techniques can individuals incorporate into their daily lives to mitigate the impact of stress?
So I think first is, you spend some time in a day, which is only for yourself. Okay, and everybody's stress buster is different.
Yeah.
You know, someone may like going for a walk, someone may like just to pick up the phone and gossip, and the other person may want to sing a song or dance. But it's important to do something for yourself every day of your life, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. How can individuals discuss their mental health concerns with a loved one and seek that support? What is that one sentence that they can say?
Don't judge me, just listen to me, you know, and I need to share with you, and that's why I'm sharing with you.
If a loved one is struggling with mental health issues, what can friends and family do to encourage them to seek support, to seek help, to seek medication?
Spend a lot of time listening to them. Please do not make judgments and be with them till they take the help. You know, physically accompany them for some time. And if you are getting tired of doing it, rally around, make a group of people who can do it, you know, so that you don't become tired as the caregiver.
Like depleted.
Yes, yes.
Right.
So it's very important to do that.
Correct. That brings us to the end. I'm at my last question. We've had so many different conversation topics, and they've been very insightful. Now, assuming that somebody doesn't feel like I have a really large mental health issue, but at the same time, yes, can I feel better? Absolutely. What are some of the actionable steps that one can take, maybe 3 or 5, to promote a good mental health lifestyle?
So, you know, like how we have physical hygiene,
Yeah.
okay, we also have a term called emotional hygiene. Okay, so for example, you know, how do you wake up in the morning? You know, there's something that I've been telling everybody is please do not wake up with an alarm. Let the body sleep well. You know, let the body decide how much to sleep. Unless you have a flight to catch, then okay, it makes sense. But otherwise, when we constantly interrupt our sleep, you know, you don't feel refreshed. The second thing is when you wake up in the morning, give yourself some time. Don't start running, don't start working. You know, enjoy your cup of tea or coffee, or, you know, have some solitude where you can kind of just see what is the kind of day you have, what do you want to do. You know, 3 is keep your phone on silent all the time, because you can then decide who you want to talk to rather than you being available to everybody all the time. You know, 4 is that if you have a problem with someone, okay, think about what is your part of the deal, what is the other person's part of the deal, and try and have a few conversations with that person. If it does not work, then you talk about it to someone else. I think if you just practice 3-4 of these things, you know, take a little break for yourself and prioritize yourself also. Yes, do everything for others. And the most important thing is don't take yourself so seriously. You know, we all land up taking ourselves seriously, and there's nothing to be serious about.
Yeah.
You know, do your work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been lovely. I think I got a few of my questions also answered. And hopefully, this is a starting point, right? Like that people get their answers and aren't afraid to either ask for help or to take a loved one for help. So thank you so much for your time, and it was lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you for being the best community, and we'll see you in the next one.